here I am with Snute, day 4, last day HomeStoryCup. We've got a bunch of Koreans who's going to fight sort of, so we'll see how that goes. First off, we're just going to talk about the groups, see how we're going to see Snute's predictions, his thoughts about the matches too. Then we're going to talk about some balance changes. So first, Alive versus Zest.
Yeah, I think Zest, he showed some very close games against Geothermal yesterday, but Alive is looking very much so in shape. But so does Zest. So I think it's going to be a close match, but I'm leaning slightly towards Zest. Maybe 3-2 in favor of Zest, I think, is reasonable.
Alright, because also a lot of people predicted TY over Zest for the deciders for his group, and he ended up eking out a win 3-2 in super close matches where they're just exchanging 1-1-1-1-1. So yeah, Zest, even I was also talking with Rotterdam, saying like how his style is very weird, like he never gets stormed, but it still works out, so
yeah,
maybe...
Very gateway heavy.
Yeah. That's the thing I don't understand. High Templars are gateway units. Anyway, well, it works, so it must have. And also, Alive is the only Terran who made it through all the groups. Is that something to say about the strength of the Terran race, or it's just the players?
I don't know. That's a very long discussion. I'm not sure if there's a good answer to it. Terran is definitely challenging in some ways, but also perhaps some of the strongest Terrans, such as the ones from Korea, might be missing. Innovation, for example, Maru, Björn, all of those very, very excellent Terrans are missing. So it might just be the representation that a lot of the best WCS Korea players here were Protoss.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's it.
Alright, so next we have SOS versus Rogue. What do you think about that?
I think SOS is going to take it. I lost to Rogue yesterday in CVT, but I wasn't too convinced about Rogue's macro play when he played against Alive. And SOS has just been destroying Zergs that I thought would handle him easily. Like, his style is so unique, it's so unpredictable and weird, and even if he gets behind, he somehow finds ways to win games.
Yeah.
So I expect Rogue to be able to take one map, but I think the series will go to SOS 3-1 or maybe even 3-0.
Alright, bold prediction.
Yeah, it's bold, but SOS is looking very sharp right now.
Alright, so next we have Solar versus Stats.
That's a very close one too. It depends on Solar's form today. If he plays a very strong defense style, then I think he can do it. But Solar versus Stats is very close to 50-50 for me. So I'm gonna have to gamble a little bit on this one. But I'm going to say Solar 3-2.
Alright.
I mean, this one is really a toss-up. Like, it's as close to 50-50 as we can get, I think.
Okay, so next we have Patience versus the Bergman himself.
The Bergman.
Mechanics. Mr. Mechanics. Yeah, the guy plays. Every time I'm here, he's always been here like an hour or two been practicing all the time.
Patience is very good. He showed some very strong games against Nerchio in Caspa Cup. But I think sort of style matches up very well against Patience. So unless Patience does some sort of tricky all-in play or something a little bit weird, then I think sort of will actually take this. He looked very convincing against Drogo yesterday, and I think the styles is going to match up in sort of his favor.
You think? Okay.
Yeah, and he's currently in such a good form as well on the European ladder. That doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot, but he's looking very strong in macro, CVT, CVP. So unless he somehow crumbles under pressure and starts doing some weird all-ins or something, I think if he just sticks to his macro play, then we might see a 3-1 or 3-0 from Solar.
Wow.
Patience is really good, don't get me wrong.
You're saying it's just a huge clash of styles and sort of just has the advantage there?
Maybe, but I'm gambling a little bit on this one too. This can backfire. I'm being a bit edgy and trying to create some hype. So I think Solar is playing amazingly at the moment, and even if Patience is playing really well as well, I think I'm going to root for Zerg here.
Alright, so who do you think will take the tournament overall?
That's a tough one. I never even thought about that. It depends on if SOS, the BlizzCon champion SOS shows up. But Zest is looking good.
Hard, is it hard? Very hard?
It's always a tough call. Like, there's 8 players left, so the chances for each individual player isn't that great. Like, there's no player that's just so many levels above everyone else. Even if Björn was in this bracket, like it. I wouldn't just be able to say like, yep, you just gotta take it. It's really tough. Like this home story is stacked to home story top 8s of all time. I think it's crazy.
All right, thanks. And now we're gonna shift to talk about the balance changes. For example, like talk about one of the smaller ones, but I feel it's still gonna, like some other players, they said that it would still affect the meta a lot. Of how and you're Mr. Stormhost yourself, so the Stormhost, the cost decreased a lot.
Ex Stormhost, Mister. I used to like them, but not so much anymore.
Well, still talking about them, their cost decreased. The locust swoop range increased from 4 to 6. That means they just swoop down way further. That's just it's very
They're
interesting.
a bit more convenient to use now.
You think that they're going to be seen used more or no?
Probably, but it's very map dependent. You have maps like King Sejong Station or Vanai Research Station or whatever it's called. Is that the name?
Yeah, it's Vanai.
Yeah, everyone knows Vanai. So it really depends on map design in that regard, and I feel like that's a bit annoying for map makers that they need to consider the swarm host. If the swarm host becomes a thing again, if you can siege bases like you can on Vanai or Sejong, then I feel like that's actually really bad for the game. So it sounds kind of silly, but I would like to see maybe either the swarm host being removed, or if the unit itself had a shorter cooldown and shorter range as well. I think that's a big problem, that you can trade so freely. I think if you could actually bring it into combat more often and launch units a bit more, I don't know, it just overlaps with the Infestor, I think. I think the Infested Terran could have been what the new Swarm Host, it's tough to explain, but I feel like the Infested Terran could have easily been buffed a little bit maybe, and it would serve the same purpose as the Swarm Host does now, only with energy based, so there's more strategic elements to it, there's more planning involved. Like you cannot just dump all of your Infested Terrans at once, like you might be at risk because you have no fungals, blah blah blah. It's like, I think the Infestor is a far more interesting unit, and the Swarm Host, if they keep buffing it, it puts a limit on the map makers, because they need to be very careful about these expansions on Sejong and Vanai. It really limits the way that they can design these bases. And,
so long story short, if
yeah, I mean it's mixed feelings. Like I think the unit sucks right now, and it needs a buff. It's very situational. But even if they change the cost, even if they make minor changes like the swoop, they still aren't going to change the fact that the Swarm Host itself is a very situational and awkward unit that's very dependent on the map. You know, that's okay. Like if you want to have different units for different maps, that's a thing, you know. But I would prefer to see some solid core units that can be used on all maps, such as maybe increasing the Infested Terran range a little bit, or maybe buffing its health a little bit, I don't know, stuff like that.
Alright, so next, since we're talking about the Infestor a lot, the Infestor has some interesting buffs that it can use spells while burrowed.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Mixed feelings again, because you know it's so easy to unburrow them again, so I'm not sure how I feel about it. I think the Infestor needs more strength right now in Legacy of the Void. It's nowhere near its strength in Wings of Liberty, and that's fair of course, because they were too strong back then. But I think a middle ground with maybe perhaps giving it some more hit points, maybe tweaking the energy, tweaking fungal a little bit, maybe have it do a little bit more damage, maybe tweak it a little bit to not stun units but maybe slow them. I think exploring stuff like that would be a bit more interesting than, I don't know. It's so weird, you know. It's so punishing for the opposing players as well. And I think if you're casting fungal, then you should be a little bit at risk. I think it's a bit weird when it can be invisible and just fungal a complete whole army. It's very non-beginner friendly, and I think it just it feels a bit weird to me. I think obviously it's a buff, but I would rather tweak the other things like neural parasite range or the mechanics themselves.
All right.
For sure.
So the next one would be the Hydralist, where it has pretty much a very big buff.
Yeah.
You think it's going to be the new Roach, basically? Because some are saying like it's still so squishy that it's maybe very strong, but it's difficult to use properly.
It's squishy, but you also have circling and baning support, and when the speed banes as well get increased health, then it's going to be ridiculously strong, I think, especially against Terran mech. I feel like the siege tanks don't really cut it once Vipers are out, and the Hydralists are so easy to maneuver. 7 range just completely destroys the Hellbats, the Cyclones. Good range against tanks as well. Thors, they just have so much range now, and range is one of the strongest factors in StarCraft 2. So if you buff the range too much, then it's very easy to get OP units. So I'm a little concerned about this change because it limits Terran players a lot, it limits Protoss players a lot, and might be a bit too strong, but I don't know.
We'll have to see.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I think the dev team seems to be trying to fix this issue that it's too strong by postponing the upgrade, like adding seconds, or they recently split the upgrades into two to make sure that they're strong but only later. But I think maybe that's not the game flow itself is the problem, but how strong they actually are in mass once the upgrades actually kick in. I feel like that advantage might be a little over the top no matter where it kicks in, so I'm not sure. I mean, no matter the upgrades, you could just keep massing Hydras, right? And once the upgrades are finished, it's like, let's go. And the other players can't do anything, you know? But we'll have to see it. We actually we got to see a lot of matches with these new Hydras first.
Yeah, a lot of players were in casters when I interviewed one of them the other day. He was talking about how it's going to be very unstable right after the patch.
Yeah.
Like Protoss is getting a huge nerf.
Yeah.
Like Terran has to have to mech in ZVT now in the DVT.
Yeah, but it's not very good.
Yeah. So Dr. Dario was saying how just the Viper just kills mech straight up.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Just simply because of Blinding Cloud, right?
Blinding Cloud, Abduct, just everything seems to be so strong, and the Viper is so powerful, so versatile. So
all right,
it's tough times for the Terrans.
So how do you feel Blizzard is going with the direction of doing major changes like this?
I think it's great. They definitely. I think the game would have benefited from having major changes rolled out sooner. When Broodlord Infestor was a problem, I think a lot of non-Zerg players got very fed up with the stalemate situations we had. When Swarmhost was a problem, it took way too long before it was changed. And I believe after the Swarmhost change in Heart of the Swarm as well, I think that late game Protoss was a bit imbalanced, like Sky Protoss is right now. I actually think I think major changes are very good for the game because there are so many things that seem like such big issues, such as the Ultralisk armor and the. I feel like some things need to be toned down a bit, such as the Ultralisk. Some things need to be toned down, such as the Tempest, which has incredible range. I think if everything was a bit more in moderation, the game could be a little bit better. And with this patch, I'm not sure if things are getting more extreme or if they're getting more well-rounded. Like it's really tough to tell. But I think it's important for people to have interest in the game, that issues that bother people get fixed. Like I know some players absolutely didn't like TVT because of the Reaper strength as well as the Tankivac Doom drop situations. So now that the Tankivac is removed, I think that's going to make some Terran players happy. Maybe the majority, I'm not sure. But I think it's very important that if something is so not fun, such as the Swarmhost or Broodlord Infestor, or in my case, I don't really like Tankivacs at all. And if a lot of people are bothered by these things, then I think it's the correct call to change the design without being too scared about balance, because you have so many things in StarCraft that you can tweak, and I think it's very much possible to keep the balance even if you change the design of some units. You just need to make more changes more frequently and react quicker to obvious imbalances.
Alright, so you don't really like the stance of Blizzard saying like, okay, we know the situation, we're gathering more data.
I feel like the gathering of data is going too slowly. I feel like with the ladder system being set up the way that it is and everything being hosted on Blizzard servers, I feel like there should be enough documentation on what's going on at the top MMR ranges and the top level. And I think a little bit of extensive searching and checking out the average outcomes of certain situations and relative strength, like win rates at certain times in the game.
You feel like there's...
I feel like some things are just very obvious, such as Broodlord Infestor. Broodlord Infestor had some components to it, you know, kill them before they get there. It's a very common trend in StarCraft 2, like, something is completely broken, but you have a lot of ways to kill them before they get there. And that's a design that some people maybe don't like, and perhaps it would be possible to increase a race, the strength of a race in the mid game, you can nerf them in the late game. Like, I feel like you can tune these things a little bit. If one race has an indestructible late game, then I don't consider that great design. So I think that's why some people are very frustrated about the current state of the Ultralisk, and why some Zergs are a little annoyed by the strength of Sky Toss, which might be a problem when the carrier is buffed, but we'll have to see where it goes. And judging by the Swarm Host and Broodlord Infestor situations, it might actually be part of the design that some races are going to have indestructible late games, but
we'll have to see.
Not sure. Like, it can change. And I'm not sure what the design team wants when it comes to stuff like this.
All right. On that note, we're going to end it here. Thanks, Lobster, for the interview. Do you have any shoutouts right before we end?
Just shoutouts to my team, Team Liquid, our sponsors, teamliquidpro.com. Check it out there. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed HomeStoryCup. And I'll be back to streaming sometime soon, hopefully.
All right. Thank you.